The evening of August 12, 1974, at the International Hotel in Las Vegas, was charged with an undeniable electric energy. Nearly 2,000 hearts beat as one, united by the shared anticipation of witnessing Elvis Presley, the king of rock and roll, perform in his prime. But as the crowd eagerly awaited the iconic figure to take the stage, there was an underlying tension. This night would become one of the most powerful, emotionally transformative moments in Elvis's legendary career. For many, Elvis was a symbol of rebellious freedom, boundless talent, and untouchable fame. Yet even in this world of glitz, glamour, and adoration, Elvis too carried burdens, deep personal struggles hidden behind the dazzling facade of his public persona. As he prepared to take the stage that night, he faced an internal conflict, torn between the expectations of fame and his need for deeper human connection. The night unfolded not just as a concert but as a rare moment of raw, unscripted connection between the king of rock and an unlikely figure, 16-year-old Michael Chen, a fan confined to a wheelchair, whose life had been shaped by physical limitations and an unwavering love for Elvis's music. For Michael, this night was more than a dream come true. It was a testament to the healing power of music and the possibility of transcendence through connection. As the crowd buzzed with excitement, little did they know, an encounter was about to take place that would forever change Elvis's perspective on his own fame and ultimately change the lives of many across the globe. In a fleeting, unplanned moment, Elvis would offer Michael more than just an unforgettable performance. He would offer him a moment of recognition, compassion, and equality that would ripple through the decades, redefining the true meaning of music. Elvis Presley. The name alone evoked awe. To the world, he was an immortal figure, larger than life, whose music echoed through the very fabric of history. His Las Vegas residency had become a beacon of luxury, spectacle, and devotion, where crowds gathered night after night, eager to be in the presence of the king. Yet, behind the dazzling white jumpsuits, the gold-studded designs, and the thunderous applause, lay a man whose personal battles were often masked by the curtain of fame. In the quiet moments before the show, as the lights of the International Hotel flickered, Elvis found himself alone backstage, staring into a mirror. His reflection seemed almost foreign, no longer just the man who captivated the masses, but a soul burdened with expectations he could scarcely understand. Fame had given him everything, yet had also taken much in return. The pressure to live up to an image, the constant demand for more, the endless touring, and the loneliness that came from living a life under constant scrutiny. Elvis felt it all. Despite his success, he grappled with a sense of isolation, a void that no amount of adoration could fill. He often wondered if the fans truly saw him beyond the show, beyond the glitz. Did they understand the human behind the legend, or was he merely a figure of entertainment, reduced to an image of fame that could never truly connect with those who loved him? As the familiar strains of Also Sprach Zarathustra filled the air, signaling the opening of another electrifying performance, Elvis was filled with a strange sense of uncertainty. There was excitement, yes, but also a gnawing question in his heart. What was it all for? Why did the music matter so much? Was it just the thrill of performance? Was it the adoration of fans, or was there something deeper that connected him to the music? Something he hadn't fully understood yet. Then, as he stepped onto the stage, the transformation was instant. The lights dazzled, and the crowd roared. Elvis Presley was the king once again, his powerful voice reverberating through the showroom, filling the space with the very essence of rock and roll. The thrill of being on stage was undeniable. It was the adrenaline, the rush, the applause. But underneath it all, a question lingered. What did it all mean, really? Was he truly doing something meaningful? Or was it all just a performance, a fleeting moment of joy in a world that moved too quickly? In that moment, Elvis was more than a performer. He was a man seeking connection, seeking a purpose beyond the stage. He needed to know that what he was doing wasn't just for show, that it was touching lives, that it was healing in a way he couldn't quite articulate yet. As the crowd cheered, Elvis tried to hold on to that feeling, but the weight of his doubts continued to pull at him, and he felt a deep longing for something more. And then, like fate itself, it happened. Michael Chen, a young boy in a wheelchair, gazed up at the stage, his eyes alight with admiration. For Michael, this night was the culmination of years of struggles, physically and emotionally. His love for Elvis was the one constant in a life filled with uncertainty and hardship, and tonight he was in the front row, just inches away from the man whose music had been his only escape. To Michael, Elvis wasn't just a performer. He was a symbol of strength, of courage, and of dreams that transcended limitations. As the concert progressed, Elvis's performance brought the room to life, but his heart was far from settled. He couldn't help but notice the young man in the front row, his face radiating a purity of joy that stirred something deep within Elvis. Michael wasn't just a fan, he was a testament to resilience, a reminder of the very reason Elvis had started making music in the first place. Elvis began to realize that there was something more important than the performance. It was the impact he had on people, the way music could heal wounds, offer strength, and create bonds between people from all walks of life. In that instant, Elvis felt the stirrings of a new understanding. This was the power of music, the power of connection, and the power of humanity. The lights in the showroom shimmered, casting long shadows that danced across the floor, while the echoes of Elvis's voice seemed to reverberate far beyond the walls of the International Hotel. The audience was captivated, but Elvis's thoughts were elsewhere. A familiar sense of doubt lingered, clouding his mind as he sang. He had performed in front of thousands before, yet tonight felt different. It wasn't just the applause, it was the silence between the songs, the quiet moments that had begun to carry the weight of something deeper. As Elvis moved across the stage, his eyes occasionally drifted toward Michael. There, in the front row, the young man was completely absorbed in the music, his face lit up by the glow of the stage lights. It was as if he had transcended his physical limitations, caught in the purity of the moment. Elvis's heart tightened as he saw Michael's hands clapping with exuberant joy, his body swaying in the rhythm, his eyes wide with wonder. There was something in that look, something that spoke directly to Elvis's heart. It was a reminder of the power of music, not just as a form of entertainment, but as a lifeline, a force capable of binding people together, of transforming lives. Despite the overwhelming energy of the crowd, Elvis couldn't shake the thought that perhaps he had been too focused on the superficial elements of his fame, the glitter, the costumes, the spectacle. What had all of it meant, really? Was it enough to perform for the world and then retreat back into the isolation of his own mind? Or was there something more, something deeper that his music could offer? He began to wonder if there was a way he could bridge the gap between performance and true connection. As he finished a song, the sound of the band faded into the background, and Elvis found himself once again searching for Michael in the crowd. This time their eyes met. Elvis's gaze locked onto the young man's, and in that instant, everything shifted. There was no longer a performer and a fan. There was simply two human beings, sharing a moment, an understanding, an unspoken connection. Elvis felt a deep pull in his chest, something beyond the usual thrill of being adored. It was a yearning for meaning, for something more real than the applause that filled the room. And then, almost instinctively, Elvis made the decision. He knew what he had to do. He couldn't just sing another song, he needed to reach out, to connect in a way that transcended the stage, beyond the performance. It wasn't just about entertaining the crowd anymore, it was about sharing something sacred, something personal, something deeply human. Elvis's heart pounded in his chest as he approached the microphone, his fingers lightly resting on its stand. "What's your name, son?" Elvis's voice broke the tension in the room, warm and gentle, as though speaking directly to Michael alone, as though they were the only two in the world. The crowd grew silent, sensing that something extraordinary was about to unfold. Elvis leaned down, bringing himself to eye level with Michael, who could hardly believe that the man he had idolized for years was now speaking to him, treating him not as a fan, but as a fellow human being. "Michael, the teenager stammered, his voice filled with disbelief and emotion. His heart raced in his chest, but it wasn't out of fear. It was joy, the kind of joy that makes time stand still. Michael, Elvis repeated, as if savoring the sound of the name, making it personal. That's a strong name, Michael. I can see the music in your heart from here. It's shining out of you like a beacon. Elvis's words were soft but full of conviction. I want you to know that you inspire me just as much as you say I inspire you. The way you're enjoying this show tonight, the pure joy on your face, that's what music is all about. That's why I do what I do. The room was still, the tension palpable, as Elvis spoke, with a sincerity that cut through the usual performance script. The audience held their breath, witnessing a rare moment of genuine connection. As he finished, Elvis's eyes never left Michael's. In that brief interaction, something incredible had taken place. The connection between them wasn't about admiration, it was about shared humanity. And then, to everyone's shock, Elvis did something that no one could have predicted. He began to sing "Love Me Tender" directly to Michael. As the music swelled, Elvis's voice took on a new quality, tender, intimate, as if singing only for Michael. His words, once familiar, now felt deeper, imbued with a new sense of meaning. Michael's heart swelled with emotion, and despite his surprise, he found his voice. Slowly, he began to sing along, his clear tenor voice blending beautifully with Elvis's baritone. The room was filled with a magic that no one could describe, an impromptu duet that transcended the boundaries of stage and audience, singer and fan, creating a moment that was completely outside the realm of performance. The crowd was transfixed, many wiping away tears as they witnessed the raw beauty of the moment. It wasn't just a concert, it was a moment of human connection that would live on in the hearts of everyone who was there. The moment that followed was nothing short of extraordinary. As "Love Me Tender" came to a close, the room erupted into a wave of applause, louder and more intense than anything Elvis had heard before. But Elvis wasn't done. As the cheers began to die down, he made an announcement that would resonate not just with the people in the room, but with millions around the world. Ladies and gentlemen, Elvis's voice rang out, carrying with it a weight that made every word feel monumental. I want to share something with all of you tonight. The room fell silent, as if instinctively sensing that Elvis was about to say something deeply personal, something that would change the course of the evening. This young man, Elvis continued, pointing toward Michael, has traveled a long way to be here tonight, and his presence reminds me of something very important. Sometimes, in the midst of all the glitter and glamour of show business, I forget what music is truly about. Elvis paused, allowing the gravity of his words to settle over the audience. The band continued playing softly in the background, the gentle strains of "Love Me Tender" still lingering in the air. But Elvis's next words would become legendary, forever linked to this unforgettable moment. "Music doesn't care about the limitations that life sometimes places on us," Elvis said, his voice growing stronger, more passionate with every word. "Music doesn't see wheelchairs or disabilities or differences. Music doesn't care about your bank account, your social status, or what neighborhood you come from. Music only sees the human heart." Elvis Sitt's eyes locked onto Michael Sitt's once more. "And Michael here has one of the biggest, most beautiful hearts Sitt have ever encountered." The audience remained perfectly still, the air heavy with the emotional intensity of the moment. Elvis wasn't just talking about the music anymore. He was talking about the human condition, about what it means to truly connect, to see beyond the surface, and recognize the soul of another person. It was a realization that went beyond the stage and pierced through to something universal, something deeply human. And then, with a gesture that seemed almost effortless, Elvis made his next move, something that would forever cement the significance of this evening. "Michael," he said, his voice gentle yet full of authority, "I want you to come up on stage with me." The crowd Sitt's anticipation hung in the air, but Elvis wasn't finished. "I want everyone here tonight to meet someone who proves that courage and spirit and the love of music are more important than anything else in this world." As Michael's wheelchair was carefully and respectfully lifted onto the stage, the entire audience stood to their feet, clapping and cheering. The applause wasn't just for Elvis. It was for Michael, for his spirit, for his courage, for the unspoken connection that had just been forged in the most unlikely of places. When Michael finally appeared beside Elvis, it wasn't just a moment of fanfare, it was a symbol of something far deeper. It was a recognition of human potential, of the ability to transcend limitations, to reach beyond the boundaries that life had imposed. The audience could feel it. This wasn't about being a star or a fan. It was about the shared humanity that united them all in that room, and it was a connection that transcended the stage. Elvis positioned Michael's wheelchair beside the grand piano, then did something that left everyone in awe. He sat down on the edge of the stage, bringing himself to Michael's eye level, and without skipping a beat, began to ask him a question that would go down in history. "Michael," Elvis said, holding the microphone near the young man, "tell these folks what music means to you." It was a simple question, but the weight of it was immeasurable. Michael, who had spent so much of his life feeling different, feeling isolated, suddenly found himself at the center of the universe, surrounded by thousands of people, standing beside the man he had idolized for years. He was asked to share his truth. "Music saved my life," Michael said, his voice clear and strong but thick with emotion. "When I listen to your songs, Mr. Presley, I don't feel different. I don't feel limited. I don't feel broken. I feel like I can do anything, be anything, go anywhere. Music makes me feel free in a way that nothing else can." The words hung in the air, resonating in the hearts of everyone in the room. It wasn't just a story of overcoming physical challenges. It was a story of how music had the power to heal, to unite, and to offer freedom in the most profound way. Michael wasn't just speaking about his own journey. He was speaking for everyone who had ever felt excluded, underestimated, or overlooked. And as he spoke, the audience saw themselves in him. They saw the healing power of art, the way it could transcend all the walls and barriers that life sometimes erects. Elvis nodded, his face a mirror of understanding and deep respect. He didn't need to say anything more. The moment spoke for itself. As the music faded, Elvis and Michael stood together on stage, a moment that would be etched in history, not as a performance but as an example of how music, compassion, and human connection could transcend boundaries. The applause was deafening, but it wasn't just for the music, it was for the undeniable humanity that had been displayed in that one unforgettable moment. As Michael was carefully helped off the stage, his face still glowing with joy and disbelief, Elvis stood at the microphone once again, looking out over the audience. His voice, tinged with emotion, carried a weight that echoed through the showroom. "This young man here," Elvis said, his words resonating deeply, "has reminded me of something that I sometimes forget. Music, at its best, doesn't just entertain, it heals, it connects. It reminds us that we are all human. No matter the struggles we face, no matter the labels we wear, music, like love, doesn't care about the obstacles, it only cares about the heart." And in that moment, Elvis Presley not only shared a powerful lesson with his audience, but he also found a deeper understanding of his own purpose as an artist. No longer was he simply a rock star. He was, in his own words, a healer, a man with the power to inspire, to unite, and to help others overcome their own barriers, whether they be physical, emotional, or societal. The aftermath of the night was profound, not only for Elvis, but for everyone involved. For Michael, the experience was life-changing. He returned home to Bend, Oregon, with a renewed sense of purpose and confidence that would guide him for the rest of his life. Inspired by the connection he had shared with Elvis, Michael pursued a career in music therapy, using the same healing power of music that had so deeply impacted him to help others. He became a respected figure in the Pacific Northwest, working with children and adults with disabilities, showing them how music could be a bridge to emotional healing and personal transformation. In the months that followed, Michael's story spread far and wide. Interviews, magazine features, and television appearances followed, but Michael always kept the focus on the message Elvis had shared with him that night. "It's not about me," he would often say, "it's about the music and the power it has to bring people together, to lift people up." Elvis, too, was affected by the night's events. In interviews over the following months, he spoke frequently about Michael, about the lesson he had learned in that moment of genuine connection. He credited Michael with reminding him of why he had started making music in the first place. Not for the fame, not for the adoration, but to touch lives, to heal hearts, and to create a lasting impact. Elvis began to see his role as an entertainer in a new light. It was no longer just about putting on a show, it was about making a difference, one heart at a time. For the International Hotel, the events of that night led to changes in the way accessibility was considered in live performances. The hotel worked with disability advocacy groups to improve accessibility for all guests, ensuring that people like Michael would never again feel excluded from the transformative experience of live music. Elvis's spontaneous act of kindness had sparked a ripple effect, influencing venues across the country to adopt better accessibility standards, making live performances more inclusive. In the years to come, the night Michael Chen shared the stage with Elvis Presley would become one of the defining moments of Elvis's career. It was a moment that transcended fame and stardom, a moment that showed the world what true greatness looked like: compassion, inclusion, and a recognition of the inherent value in every human being, no matter their circumstances. The images of Elvis kneeling beside Michael, singing together, and sharing that intimate moment of connection became some of the most iconic and emotionally powerful photographs of the decade, immortalizing a lesson that would continue to inspire generations to come. As the final notes of "He Touched Me" lingered in the air, and the applause of the audience continued to reverberate through the showroom, Elvis Presley's heart was forever changed. The night that had begun as another spectacular performance had transformed into a deeply human experience, a realization that music was not just entertainment, it was a bridge to the heart. Elvis had always known the power of his music, but it was Michael Chen's pure, unfiltered joy, his courage in the face of adversity, and his unwavering love for music that reminded Elvis of the true purpose of his craft. Music, as Elvis had come to understand that night, doesn't care about the barriers that life imposes. It doesn't see disabilities, wealth, race, or social status. It only sees the human heart. And when two hearts meet, like Elvis's and Michael's did on that stage, something powerful happens, a transformation that transcends the performance and touches the soul. Elvis's encounter with Michael was not just an act of kindness. It was a powerful statement about the universal human need for recognition, empathy, and connection. It showed the world that true greatness lies not in fame, but in how we use our platforms to empower others, to make them feel seen and heard. It was a reminder that music has the power to heal, to uplift, and to unite us all. The story of that night continues to resonate, reminding us of the profound impact one moment of compassion can have on the world. It's a story that transcends generations, proving that no matter our struggles, our dreams matter, and we all have the capacity to inspire, to love, and to be a part of something greater than ourselves. As you reflect on Michael and Elvis's encounter, ask yourself, what does music or art mean to you? How has it shaped your life or helped you heal in ways words alone could not? Share your thoughts in the comments below and join the conversation about the power of empathy and human connection. And if this story moved you, share it with someone who needs to be reminded that kindness and compassion can change lives. Because in the end, we all have the ability to make a difference,